All right, so this is from Liquid versus Faze version 1 from Blast. Last weekend at the time of recording this. This is the beginning of February, end of January 2020. And I'm going to take a look at a few different looks of timing in this game, or in this round specifically. Where we've got Nico and Rain. They've made their way around towards Cat. They didn't fast Cat. They're going the long way here. So that does affect the timing. That means Elige is going to be all the way pushed up here by the time he runs into them. And he'll catch Rain off guard, and you'll see this little stutter that Nico does. And that can do, partially two things. First of all, there's a flash coming over from Rain that could potentially have blinded him if he went actually all the way. And the other thing is, by jiggling out and then backing and then peeking out again, he gets Elige to shoot at him, and then he re-peeks out when Elige is in that cooldown. He just shot, but he's not yet accurate again, and Nico tries to peek out at that timing to catch him off guard, right? And peeking out at that type of timing gives him a pretty good chance to get the kill, makes it easier to grab that trade. And that's really the essence of trading, is finding the right timing around a corner where your opponents are in cooldown and are not yet ready to shoot back at you. Following that, Nico's going to kind of sit around here. Now, the important thing to realize is that if we go back, you're going to see that Faze, as soon as they started to get resistance on Cat, they were pretty quick about hitting their way out towards long. When you get resistance on Cat, that means two players were dedicated up on Catwalk. And, if two players are dedicated up on Catwalk, and I say two because one of them had to boost and the other one got boosted, then their long control is going to be pretty weak. Now, of course, they were already set to take long, but they go pretty quickly once they realize that cat control is happening, and they make it happen, and they get the control. And now Nico's got cat control, and you've got Faze with long control as well, but the delay here causes them a lot of problems. Nico is going to wait out this smoke that he threw himself on Cat, and they think they have time, likely because either they're kind of expecting it to potentially be a 4-stack from Liquid, in which case, waiting essentially suggests Liquid would actually consider rotating off, because at this point, unless Liquid is pushed up into tunnels, which isn't all that likely, because FaZe have had a player in tunnels very consistently throughout the half, and they've been heavily pressuring middle to take this area out of the hands of Liquid, means Liquid has to spend a lot of time kind of going for that flank. It's going to be very delayed. So they're not super worried about it, but they do wait just a hair too long. Very likely, at least in part due to this smoke that Stewie's going to toss down here. Before this smoke goes down, they're trying now to make their way up. They're going to molly car, and they're trying to make their way up. And then Stewie's going to toss down this smoke onto Catwalk, which really throws a wrench in the works of Nico. And they're going to slow down a little bit. Now, this timing from Nitro here may well be at least a little bit luck-based, right? He wasn't really paying attention too much. It's very possible Nico could have held for a little bit longer. But the timing we see in a moment is much more interesting. Now, this is, again, FaZe having left enough time for Liquid to get aggressive and loop back around to flank on Catwalk, and thinking probably they had time to do that because of the way they've played out the rest of the half. However, in reality, didn't really have time to do that. What's interesting is, as soon as this flash from Naf is thrown, look at the reaction from Nico, right? So Naf's going to throw this, and then Nico, as soon as that flash happens, he wants to push through the smoke. But Nitro himself knows that that flash just happened, and he knows that the gears are turning in anyone's head on Cat. That flash pops, so my long players are now distracted looking this way, which means someone is very likely to try to flank them, and I can flank the player trying to flank, which is just very specifically how important timing is. Sometimes it can feel like timing is just luck, but in a lot of cases, when played correctly, timing it's a lot more, or there's a lot more to it than just luck. It's not that the player there just got absolutely lucky. He had a timing based off the way the round was playing out. Now here is a little bit odd. Brokey's going to get this bomb plant here, and you're going to see him jumping around, and it's, one of a couple of options. Now, first of all, it could be a disconnect between the spectator and the in-game view, because sometimes there is a disconnect there. Sometimes you can see something as a spectator that the player doesn't see, or the other way around. However, it's also very possible that, Brokey just got the right timing based off his knowledge. He knew Nitro flanked Cat. He was well aware that Nitro flanked Cat. And obviously when you flank Cat, the options are to go back around through towards CT, or to make your way out through long and go for that flank. And as he jumped around, the last time he jumped, he kind of eliminated Cat from his mind, because if Nitro had been on Cat, he would have peeked out by then. It had been, a good 5 seconds plus since the bomb had been planted. He would have made some contact from Cat at that point, which means he's either long or he's looped back around. And when he went and jumped up, he didn't spot anybody long either. And I suppose a very likely possibility is that he got the knowledge, this is about the time when Nitro would get towards Elevator if he quickly flanked around through CT. And obviously that is the correct call. Now again, it's definitely possible he spotted him as he jumped, but it's also very possible, and seems reasonable to expect, that this was just him knowing the timing really well. And so you can see how there's kind of different aspects of timing going on and around. The timing knowledge, how long it takes to flank around through Cat. It seemed like Faze was a little bit off on that one, a little bit off on the idea of how long this timing was actually going to take, which means Liquid was able to kind of rotate over and get in position before Faze could make their way out. At the same time, Nitro had really good knowledge of timing on the flank on Nico here on towards Catwalk, and Brokey had fantastic knowledge of timing out here towards Ramp, while a lot of Faze also had some really good timing. They didn't immediately rush out long, they still went for their play, but the knowledge that, that long is likely uncontested may have affected the way they took it a little bit less aggressively and a little bit less worried about the contact as they would be otherwise. Certainly shows a few different variations of how timing works, and just an interesting thing to keep in mind.